Some people survive a bad day. These people survived the impossible. A fall from 2 miles up, months adrift at sea with no land in sight, a rod driven straight through the skull, 2 atomic bombs, and over a year trapped in the most hostile place on Earth. These are 5 true stories of people who should not be alive. And are. Story 1. Juliane Koepcke fell 2 miles from the sky. On Christmas Eve 1971, a 17-year-old girl named Juliane Koepcke boarded a flight over the Peruvian rainforest with her mother. 20 minutes in, lightning struck the plane. It broke apart mid-air. Juliane didn't have a parachute, and she wasn't strapped to anything solid anymore. She had nothing, just open sky and 2 miles of empty air below her. She blacked out, and somehow, she woke up. Still buckled into her seat, thrown clear of the wreckage, she had fallen over 10,000 feet into the Amazon jungle. And survived. A broken collarbone. A gashed arm. A concussion. But alive. She was alone, with no food and no rescue team, deep in one of the most hostile environments on the planet. For the next 11 days, Juliane walked. She followed a stream, knowing water eventually leads to people. She ignored a wound that had maggots growing inside it. She survived on instinct and a single piece of candy she found in the wreckage. On day 11, exhausted and barely able to walk, she found a small boat and a hut. Loggers found her hours later and couldn't believe what she told them. She was the only survivor. Out of 92 people on that flight, one girl fell out of the sky and lived to tell the story. Story 2. Stephen Callahan. 76 days lost at sea. In 1982, a sailor named Stephen Callahan was crossing the Atlantic alone when his small boat was struck by something in the middle of the night. Most likely, a whale. Water poured in fast. He barely had time to grab a small inflatable life raft before his boat sank beneath him. Now he was alone, in the open ocean, with almost nothing. For the next 76 days, Callahan drifted more than 1,800 miles across the Atlantic. He had no reliable food source, so he built a makeshift spear and taught himself to fish from a rocking raft. He collected rainwater to survive the days without it. Sharks circled him more than once. His raft slowly started to fail, forcing him to keep fixing it by hand just to stay afloat. He lost a third of his body weight. His skin was covered in saltwater sores. But he refused to stop rationing, refused to stop fishing, refused to give up. On day 76, fishermen near Guadeloupe spotted his raft and pulled him out. Alive, emaciated, but alive. He had survived longer alone at sea than almost anyone in recorded history. Story 3. Phineas Gage. A rod through the skull. In 1848, a railroad foreman named Phineas Gage was using an iron rod to pack explosive powder into rock. The powder ignited early. The explosion launched the 3-foot iron rod straight through his head, entering under his cheekbone and exiting through the top of his skull. He should have died instantly. Instead, witnesses said Gage was talking within minutes. He was carried to a cart, sat upright the entire ride to town, and reportedly walked up the stairs to see a doctor with minimal help. The rod had destroyed a portion of his brain's frontal lobe. Doctors cleaned the wound, and against every expectation, Gage survived. He lived another 12 years after the accident. His personality changed noticeably afterward, a shift that became one of the most important case studies in the history of neuroscience, teaching doctors for the first time how much the brain shapes who we are. But the fact remains, a man had a 3-foot metal rod blasted completely through his head, and he lived to walk away from it. Story 4. Tsutomu Yamaguchi. Survived 2 atomic bombs. In August of 1945, a young engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi was on a business trip in Hiroshima when the United States dropped the first atomic bomb ever used in war. He was less than 2 miles from the blast. The explosion ruptured his eardrums, burned his skin, and blinded him temporarily. He survived. And the next day, he did the only thing he could. He went home. Home to Nagasaki. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb was dropped, this time on Nagasaki, the city he had just returned to. Yamaguchi was caught in a second nuclear blast in less than a week. He survived that one too. Burned, injured, and having witnessed 2 of the most destructive events in human history from close range, Yamaguchi went on to live a long life. later becoming one of the only people ever officially recognized by the Japanese government as a survivor of both bombings. Story 5. Shackleton's crew. Trapped in Antarctica for over a year. In 1914, explorer Ernest Shackleton set out with a crew of 27 men to cross Antarctica. They never even reached the continent. Their ship, the Endurance, became trapped in pack ice, and over the following months the ice slowly crushed the hull until the ship sank completely. The crew was now stranded on the ice in one of the most brutal environments on Earth, with no way to call for help and no ship to return to. For months, they camped on drifting ice floes, hunting seals and penguins just to survive the cold. When the ice began to break apart beneath them, they loaded into small lifeboats and sailed through freezing, violent seas to reach a desolate, uninhabited island. But that still wasn't safety. So Shackleton and 5 others set out in a modified lifeboat on an 800-mile journey across some of the most dangerous ocean on the planet, searching for a whaling station that could send help. They made it. And months after the Endurance first became trapped, every single one of the 27 crew members was rescued alive. Not one man was lost, in what remains one of the greatest survival stories ever recorded. 5 different people, 5 different disasters, and in every case the same outcome nobody expected. They lived. If you had to survive one of these 5 scenarios, which one do you think you could make it through? Let me know in the comments.